Trucker Dump for November 3rd, 2013, Episode 97, A Trucker's Worst Nemesis, Complacency.
Welcome to Trucker Dump, where you'll get one driver's insights and sometimes humorous views of truck driving and the trucking industry, and pretty much anything else he feels like dumping on you. This podcast is brought to you by AboutTruckDriving.com. Resources to help you understand the world of truck driving through the use of stories and a pathetic attempt at humor.
Hey there, folks. How y'all doing? I hope you're having a dandy day out there wherever you are. If not, well, here's another episode of Trucker Dump. I'm not sure if that'll cheer you up some or make you feel even worse, but hey, I don't want to be responsible for your well-being anyway. Well, I guess I should introduce myself in case you're a new listener. My name is Todd McCann, and I've been driving a truck long enough to have formed a few opinions and observations about it. For a full rundown about me and this podcast, go back and check out episode 0. My 3 regular listeners don't want to hear me blather on about myself any more than I already do. Anywho, I've got something to promote this time around. It's not exactly what I had planned to promote, but when you make a promise and then fall flat on your face, you do whatever it takes to make it right. So that brings us to Rudolph Foods and a promotion they ran a while back during National Truck Driver Appreciation Week. They were giving truckers a chance to win $1,500, and I told them I'd include their promotion in my podcast. But wouldn't you know it, this all happened when I was in my 2.5-month funk where I didn't produce a podcast. So now I'm trying to save face by telling you about their new promotion. And just for the record, Rudolph Foods is not a sponsor of the show. They did offer me some free pork rinds for helping, but I'm not really a pork rind kind of guy. And while the evil overlord loves her some pork rinds, she'd likely wait until I was asleep and beat me with a broom if a bunch of pork rinds showed up on our doorstep while she's on her diet. No thanks. Once again, you've got a chance to win $1,500, so heads up. This time around, they're helping out an organization called Gridiron Greats. There's a link in the show notes. In case you're unfamiliar with their work, the Gridiron Greats Assistance Fund is a non-profit organization that provides medical and financial assistance to former NFL players in dire need. Now, if you're anything like me, you're probably thinking, why the heck should I help these rich guys? I'll admit that was my first thought. So I went to gridirongreats.org and watched a couple of the videos. There's a link to that in the show notes too. I'm glad I did, because it reminded me that a lot of these Gridiron Greats played football back before a guy could make $8 jillion to be a backup nose tackle. Nor did they have all the advanced safety equipment and game rules that kept players from getting mauled. Just keep an open mind when you go into this. And if you've gotten a lot of enjoyment from watching big dudes pummel each other every Sunday, here's your chance to pay them back a bit. And all you have to do is pig out on pork rinds, which, let's be honest, you were probably going to do anyway. So here's how this works. If you're over 21 years of age and you're a U.S. citizen, sorry foreigners, I think all the contest lawyers think you guys have cooties. Just go to rudolphfoods.com/porkrindday and cast your vote for your favorite pork rind, Team Spicy or Team Smooth. There's a link to Rudolph Foods in the show notes. You can do so once per day until January 5th, and the winner will be randomly drawn and announced on January 7th. The lucky sucker will receive $1,500 and a year's supply of pork rinds. Sweet! Or spicy, I guess. There are also other prizes to be given away, such as football parties and free pork rinds. And while no purchase is necessary to enter, Rudolph Foods will donate 10 cents for every bag of pork rinds you buy between now and the Super Bowl. That's up to $15,000. Just look for the brands Rudolph's, Southern Recipe, Pepe's, and Lee's Snacks. And as you're stuffing your pork rind hole with, well, pork rinds, you can smile knowing you may be helping someone whose jersey you wore as a kid. You can find Rudolph Foods on Twitter, Facebook, Pinterest, YouTube, and Instagram by adding a /Rudolph Foods, no spaces, to the URL, or just search for the name. And by the way, Rudolph is spelled like the reindeer with a shiny nose. That's RUDOLPHFOODS. Or you can just be lazy and click the links in the show notes. Okay, now on with today's show. Well, once again, it's been a while since my last podcast. I've been running pretty hard lately, and I haven't had much time to write or record. And when I was broke down for 2 days recently, I honestly just didn't want to lug my microphone stand to the hotel. It might have had something to do with free Wi-Fi and a new season of Bones on Netflix, too. Maybe. But here I sit on a 34-hour restart that's actually going to be legal for a change of pace, so here's your podcast. You might also hear a slight difference in the quality of my voice. I was listening to a recent episode of the always excellent Nosillacast podcast, there's a link in the show notes, and Allison's guest, Dave Hamilton, another Mac hero of mine, was talking about microphones. Apparently, my voice will be much richer if I position the mic closer to me. Now, I doubt it'll make me any less annoying, but let me know if you can hear a difference anyway. So anyway, us truckers are always complaining about all our enemies out here on the road. There's the DOT, the cops, the FMCSA and their mind-boggling rules, and even four-wheelers. But to be honest, it's not always an outside party that's the problem. Think about this. A trucker's worst nemesis? Complacency. Well, crap on a stick. Guy just pulled in next to me idling and a reefer. Just my luck. Hope you can't hear it, and if you can, sorry. Hope you can make it through it. So, I got a new truck the other day, and of course that means I'm all out of sorts. Even though my new ProStar looks exactly like my old one on the outside, the interior is slightly different. Just different enough, in fact, that I still bump my head on something or other at least once per day, usually more. I have the tender skull to prove it. But what am I rambling on about? Well, my new truck just about got me into a heap of trouble the first day I had it. First, let me say that there's only one particular day that I don't miss the evil overlord, the wife and ex-co-driver, out here on the road. That day is any day I'm switching trucks. You see, when it's just me, I can get all my junk swapped over and put away within an hour or so. But toss the winch into the mix, and you're looking at a 4 or 5 hour job and a couple of butt chewings because I never could resist a few jabs about how much crap she always brought. Why I inflict this torture on myself? I have no idea. So anyway, I'd already had a long day when I got to the yard to pick up my new truck. So after I got everything situated, I was pooped. After a long hot shower and some potato ham chowder, I was itching for the bunk. The load I was picking up was on the yard, so I went on over and backed under the trailer. Now, every driver will tell you that there is a ritualistic aspect of hooking up a trailer. Most drivers do it the exact same way every time. One of the worst things that can happen to me is when someone starts talking to me during this routine. Due to my complete inability to multitask, I inevitably screw something up and have to double-check everything. But this time, I got no such interruptions. I followed my ritual to the letter. First, I hooked up the pigtail, that's the electrical cord, and then my airlines. There's a picture of those in the written version. You can click on the link in the show notes to look at them. There's also some other pictures coming up, so you might want to go on over there. Next, I stooped down to see if the fifth wheel pin was flush against the fifth wheel. There's some photos of that too. The next step is to jack up the landing gear on the trailer. Hopefully the previous driver wasn't an idiot who had cranked it high enough for Babe the Big Blue Ox to get his big blue butt under it. The ritual is completed after I do my walk-around inspection, which involves checking all the lights and thumping all 18 tires to make sure they're all aired up. The thump sounds different if the tire is low or flat. Now, normally the last thing I do before I hit the road is a pull test to make sure the fifth wheel is latched. You do this by leaving your trailer brakes locked and releasing your tractor brakes. A quick tug will tell you whether your trailer is secured to the tractor. But I was tired that night and I went to bed since I wasn't going anywhere until morning anyway. I'm sure y'all can see where this is going. Well, I slept like crap that night. Despite having a new truck with a bunk heater in it, I couldn't use it on the first night. The shop guy said the truck had been sitting for a while and the batteries wouldn't likely be up to snuff until I ran the truck for a full day. It was going to get into the 30s that night, so it was cold enough to idle the engine. But there was a problem with that, too. You see, my company bases our governed speed on our idle time. Since I just got the truck, if I had idled the truck for 8 hours, I would have been at 100% idle time, and it would have taken me a heck of a lot longer than 8 hours of driving to get my idle time back down to an acceptable amount. I was having no part of that. I don't like going even 2 miles an hour slower than I can. So, out came the cowboy long johns. Yep, bright red and complete with buttons up the front and an escape hatch in the rear. 'Cause you never know when you might need a surprise escape. I love the warmth of these things, but I'm awfully glad these trucks don't come equipped with a full-length mirror. It couldn't have been very pretty. Still, even with wool socks and an extra comforter, I felt like a popsicle and therefore tossed and turned all night. Funny, the cold didn't seem to bother me as much last year. I think I'm beginning to understand why old people's houses always feel like a friggin' sauna. When I woke the next morning, I was colder than a skinny dipping Eskimo. That prompted a couple of snooze buttons and a deeper burrowing into the covers. When I was starting to push my delivery time, I finally crawled out of bed. The only thing worse than crawling out of warm blankets, well, semi-warm, is the half a second that comes between your long johns coming off and your fit for public viewing clothes going on. I then realized I had forgotten to fuel the night before, so now I'm in a hurry. I start the truck, release both brakes, and slowly pull out. Just as I started to put my foot into the accelerator, something feels off. And then, bam, it was too late. Well, not completely. It could have been much worse. Yep, just like you suspected, the trailer wasn't latched and I nearly dropped the trailer to the ground with the landing gear up. Luckily, my reflexes were sufficiently awake to stop soon enough that it only landed on my truck's frame. After 10 minutes of hard cranking that had me breathing so hard I tasted blood, yes, seriously, I noticed that the fifth wheel pin was still flush to the fifth wheel. Ah, so that's the problem. Apparently, new trucks come with the fifth wheel jaws closed. Again, there's photos of the fifth wheel jaws and this fifth wheel pin that I'm talking about. Since the jaws normally stay open when not attached to a trailer, I hadn't thought to check it before I backed into the trailer. And there it is, a trucker's worst nemesis, complacency. Definition of complacency. A noun. A feeling of smug or uncritical satisfaction with oneself or one's achievements. Well, when you've been driving a truck for as long as I have, it's bound to happen. You get cocky. You don't watch the rear of your trailer during turns as much as you should. You don't get out and look when you're backing into a tight parking spot. After all, you're pretty sure you're going to miss that other truck's mirror. You glance at the Twitter stream on your phone while driving more than you should. You might even find yourself thinking, yeah, I'm driving, but that apple didn't roll that far back into the bunk area. I'm pretty sure I can reach it without pulling over. And obviously, you don't check your fifth wheel properly. Come on now, drivers. Don't leave me hanging like a married lady's lingerie. Let's be honest. How often have you had an accident or even a little mirror tap oopsie right after you had a close call with another incident? Rarely, if ever. You're on high alert after a close call. No, bad things happen when everything is going swell. When you're feeling confident in your driving skills. When you're feeling a tad bit holier than thou. When you're feeling complacent. I remember the first time I felt completely confident in my trucking skills. I don't remember the exact day or even where I was, but I do remember the feeling. I was about 10 years into my career at the time. I pulled into a shipper and everything was tight. Really tight. I saw all the trucks that were already docked and I saw the one dock space left. Then I looked at the banged up chain link fence that had obviously taken its fair share of truck paint. I saw how tight it was going to be, and for the first time I thought, I got this. If those drivers can get into those docks, I know I can too. I remember that striking me as odd that it was the first time I'd felt that way in my driving career. In the past, I'd always break into a light sweat and think, I'm never going to get into that spot. So much so that to this day, the evil overlord always teases me about saying stuff like, I'm never going to get onto this busy road, or my most used phrase ever, we're never going to find a parking spot in here. Somehow, I always managed to get the job done, despite her constant ribbing. But it was never without much weeping and gnashing of teeth. Okay, maybe I didn't weep, but I know I lost a lot of fingernails in the process, and I may or may not have squirted in my shorts a few times. So what can we drivers do to keep from getting complacent? Well, I hope you didn't read all this hoping I'd solve the problem, because I haven't. I'm clueless. If I knew how to keep complacency from creeping up on me, I'd tell you. So instead, I'm going to ask you, what do you do to keep from becoming complacent? Or do you not have it all figured out either? The only way I seem to keep complacency at bay is for something bad to happen, or at best, a near miss. Frankly, those are both crappy options. Surely there's someone out there who has an answer. Every time I see a driver with a 3 million safe miles sticker on his truck, I think, how'd they manage that? Are they just lucky, or do they really stay focused on safety all day, every day, without any lapses in judgment? I just don't know how they do it. Maybe they're robots, or at the very least, cyborgs. Whatever they are, I'm not one of them. I guess I'm just too easily distracted. Squirrel!
Hey, yo, bud, where do you want this load of feedback?
All right, folks, here we go with another comment section. I do appreciate y'all hanging on with me last time. Know that was a long feedback show. I still got quite a bit of feedback, and actually I found some more over on another website. So I'm going to hit a few of those real quick. This is from when I was posting over at truckdrivernews.com quite a bit. I was guest posting over there, and got a few comments over there. Valentin Riviera writes in and says, "Hey Todd, nice blog." Well, Valentin, it's not my blog, but thanks anyway. He says, if you get a chance to go to YouTube and type in blindside backing mirror master, tell me what you think. Thanks. Well, I did go over and check out the blindside backing mirror master. It's kind of a neat product. I do avoid blindside backing like the Black Plague, so I'm not sure it'd be worth my investment. But if I were a local driver in a big city like New York City, I'd buy this thing in a second. So if any of you local drivers find yourself blindside backing all the time and you have issues with it, you might want to check this out. Like he said, just go to YouTube and type in blindside backing mirror master. There's your plug, Valentin, and you didn't even ask for it. Next up, DR writes in, and quite honestly, I can't remember if I did this one before. I'm all messed up on my comments. I got to get a better system to figure out what's been read and what hasn't. So bear with me. But this one was pretty good, so I just want to make sure it gets out there, even if I've already done that. And I was pretty happy with the answer I gave him back, too. DR writes in on the Arguing E-logs podcast. He writes in and says, in a few words, your freedom is taken from you. You have to drive from point A to point B. When you make a stop in between, it's only to fuel and grab a sandwich. Now I am forced to leave home 10 hours earlier to sit somewhere for 10 to 16 hours just to be on time, for nothing when they still make you wait to get unloaded. I remember this one time I got put out of service on a roadside inspection after waking up, but because I did not have my log up to date, DOT shut me down. No problem, he told me, but I can't leave you here. I have to put you someplace for 10 hours with a restroom and food accommodations, and that's what he did. So why am I forced to have to drive from point A to point B to sit at the customer in the middle of nowhere without food, restroom, or whatever to make me comfortable? Because now that I'm out of hours, the moving truck will put me in violation. What a joke. Dispatch, lawmakers, law enforcers, shippers, and receivers are all home resting nicely in their bed so they could come in and ask why you're late and you had plenty of time to get here. And this is in all caps. Oh, I'm so sorry. I parked at the truck stop down the road 30 miles away from my convenience for 9 hours while you were at home for yours. And I had 1 more hour left in order to get legally. Did that make sense? No, it probably didn't. Anyway, this is another one of those with the hardly any punctuation and no capitalization, so bear with me. He goes on and to finish up, he says, I could have gotten here 9 hours earlier and waited, but the doors were locked to your restroom and no restaurant around. You get the picture. What do they care? It's about money on their part. The people who came out with the trucking software, it's money. DOT makes their work more easy, companies to keep track of you. I'm on E-log now, but not for long. I will go elsewhere until I have no other choice. Now, as the song goes, I feel like a prisoner of the highway. Well, you know, DR, I also find myself sitting at customers way more since I've been on E-logs. What the E-log Nazis don't understand is that most of us drivers didn't use paper logs to blatantly break the rules. We used them to make us efficient. At first, I did blame the E-logs for this, but after getting some experience with them, I now see that the real problem is the inflexibility of the hours of service rules and the inefficiencies of the trucking industry. For instance, The 14-hour rule would be largely irrelevant if receivers didn't take 4 hours to unload us. Likewise, a traffic jam wouldn't make me drive over my allotted hours if there was some sort of flexibility in the hours of service rules. Like, say we got 1 extra driving hour 2 to 3 times a week, or something like that. That would probably fix at least some of those situations where we have to park at customers instead of truck stops. And it would definitely fix 90% of the E-log violations caused by traffic jams. So basically, DR, we're screwed. I have no confidence that any of this will be changed by the folks who were dumb enough to implement the new 34-hour rule in its current state. Do you? And DR wrote me back and says, glad you mentioned tired. Do you know now I fall asleep more behind the wheel than I ever did in my whole 29 years of driving career? All because I'm racing a clock. Back in the day, when you're tired, you pull over and take a 2-hour nap, and then you get up and go. If you do that now and you run out of hours, then you can't make your delivery. You have to hear this noise called dispatch telling you had plenty of time or you should have left home early while I stay at home with my family. As far as I see it, E-logs are not going to prevent accidents. It's helping cause them. I love my work at 29 years, but I am not an A to B driver. And this is what they want now, someone they can control. The new guys trying to push the old ones out the door. My 29 years means crap. Go look for a new job now, and all they care about is your driving record from the last 2 years. Well, DR, you've been driving twice as long as I have, so I'd like to get your opinion on this. And all you other drivers out there, too. It's my opinion that the 14-hour rule is definitely the worst thing that's happened to the hours of service since I've been driving when I started way back in 1997. Can anyone think of anything worse? As for your 29 years meaning crap, well, you and I both know all those years matter, but I totally understand what you're trying to say. Like how most companies put a cap on mileage pay. For instance, my company maxes us out when we have 7 years of experience. So my 16 years and your 29 gets paid the same as someone with 7 years. Doesn't make much sense, does it? Well, DR, thanks again for writing, and make sure you write me back on that 14-hour rule thing. What do you think? Is it the worst thing that's happened, or is there something worse? Next up, WolverineTom writes in with a comment about the videos I put up called How to Do a Full Body Workout Inside the Cab of a Semi. He writes, Todd, great job on the videos. I definitely need to do this workout. Glad you did this. It shows me it can be done fairly easily. I will do it. Okay, I'm going to start. Here I go. Okay. Oh crap, I'm a procrastinator. I will seriously give this a try. Thanks. Well, WolverineTom, how's it coming with the workout there? Sounds like there might have been some hesitation going on. Glad you found the videos useful. Unlike some other people, you got the idea behind the videos. Not to show how unbuff I am, but to show that this workout is actually possible. To be honest, I haven't done this workout in a while. I've been using the Gorilla Workout app on my iPhone to mix things up a bit. I do tend to do my dumbbell routine more in the winter because I can turn the truck off and still not get overheated. I often still have to crack the windows a bit to cool off. Good luck with motivating to work out, and keep me posted on how you're doing. And now let's hop back over to my site, abouttruckdriving.com, to finish this up. A couple more, I think. And then I'll be almost caught up, believe it or not. Wow, awesome. Well, except for the jobshadow.com. Man, I got some long ones over there. Anyway, JD Barr writes in on the honor among truckers. This is the one where I talk about how we drivers have to trust each other quite a bit out here just to survive and not be paranoid constantly. So anyway, he says, great blog. I stumbled upon it while laying over for a day in some nameless seedy truck stop in Florida with pay parking. I started driving in 95 and have noticed the honor, what little there ever was, is indeed rapidly fading away. Warning, I'm an owner-operator and do drive a long-nosed Pete, so don't hate. My clear coat paint is peeling off my hood, so I'm kind of hoping to get a free paint job courtesy of it. It's the least they can do for ruining a tolerable profession in the race to be the bottom feeder carrier of the century. I better get out and do some people watching, or free security work, while I waste some more time in this armpit called a truck stop. Later. Well, if you remember right, JD was talking about his long-nosed Pete. I was talking about hiding behind it in that episode. And yeah, JD, I know those seedy truck stops in Florida. I've been in many of those myself. The evil overlord and I stopped at one somewhere out on US 27 near Miami one time. It was extremely muggy, as always, and we really wanted a shower. We had to wade through about 20 cats to get to the cinder block outbuilding where the showers were. There was mold all over the walls, and the raw pipes were sticking out of the walls. Although luckily we couldn't see it very well due to the one lone light bulb hanging in the middle of the room like a torture chamber in a spy movie. I hope you're wrong about the honor fading away. It'd really make the trucking life even harder if we couldn't trust each other not to break into each other's trucks to steal us blind. And that's an interesting comment you made about your company racing to be the bottom feeder carrier of the century. It's really got me curious who they are. But hey, since my company's name is Taboo Online, I guess I can't rightly expect you to spill the beans. Oh well, I guess if they're that bad, then I'm behind you on getting your Pete's nose painted. 'Cause that thing is so stinking big, it might bankrupt your company just to put it in primer. And lastly, Brent wrote in on the one about understanding the new hours of service rules. We had talked to, who was it before? I believe it was Lloyd, about Texas having different rules, different hours of service rules, and I didn't know that. And Lloyd wrote back in with some explanation, and Brent actually writes in on this subject too. But he brings up a question that I've had for a long time, and maybe you guys who have been doing this longer than I have, or actually care about this industry more than I do, might know the answer to this question. So here goes. Brent says, the new hours of service rules do not apply to Texas intrastate drivers unless you cross state lines. If so, you must follow federal rules until the end of the tour. You better have an MC number along with your USDOT number if you plan to cross state lines. Well, thanks for piping in on this, Brent, and for backing up Lyle. Lyle? Gosh, I hope that was that guy's name. Sorry if it wasn't Lyle. You know who you are. The Texas guy. Anyway, Brent, I have to admit that I've never really understood why a trucking company needs both a USDOT number and an MC number. I looked up both of these online, and both say that you need to have their number if you want to travel across state lines. So if they both serve the same purpose, why do carriers need to have both? See now why I never call myself a trucking expert? Quite honestly, it still amazes me that even after 16 years of trucking, I'm just now grokking the fact that states can have their own set of hours of service rules. It just goes to show that you never stop learning. I'm curious though, have you ever had a DOT officer from another state question your logbook when they look at your last 7 days in Texas? I'd be interested to know if they actually understood what they were looking at. And thanks for writing in, Brent. And for all you guys, if you know what the difference between an MC number and a USDOT number is, please explain it to me. They seem to have the same purpose. You need both of them to cross state lines. Why have both? Anyway, write in and tell me. And here's how you can contact me. Well, I was serious about needing your suggestions to keep from getting complacent out here. Send them in to truckerdump@gmail.com or go to abouttruckdriving.com and leave them in the comments section of TD097. And while you're there, you may as well subscribe to the podcast and the blog. If you're on Twitter, you can always find me there as Todd McCann. That's 2 D's, 2 C's, and 2 N's. Give me a shout and tell me you're listening. I've heard other podcasters say it's the little things that keep them motivated to keep podcasting. They're right. Just knowing you're listening does the trick for me. So thanks to everyone who writes in, and even everyone who just listens silently. So until next time, drive safe and stay out of my way.